Apple's long-awaited M2 iPad Air is finally arriving, putting an end to the legendary M1 chip, which is now being put to rest now that Apple officially discontinued the M1 MacBook Air just a couple of days ago. So in this video, I'm gonna go through and explain the significance of each one of the new 5 features and answer the big question of whether you should actually buy this new 2024 iPad Air or just wait for the much better M3 iPad Pro. For feature number 1, it's obviously the new M2 chip, which is a pretty big advancement in terms of performance, but how big of a deal is it really? Well, in terms of CPU performance, it's not that big of a deal, but more power is of course always better. Just looking back at when Apple upgraded the iPad Pro to the M2 chip, we noticed about 10% higher single-core performance, which is helpful for web browsing performance and simple apps, making it feel a bit more snappy. We actually got a huge 26% improvement in the Speedometer 2.0 web browsing benchmark, which we weren't expecting at all, and it's a very welcome upgrade. Multi-core got a nice improvement as well, jumping by about 16%, which is gonna help for everything from productivity apps all the way to gaming, since a lot of mobile games still rely a lot on the CPU, so it could make your FPS quite a bit more smooth. But the Metal graphics benchmark was where we saw a massive improvement, with the M2 chip giving us a raw performance boost that was 61% higher. Now for real-world gaming benchmarks, it wasn't as good, giving us just a 21% higher FPS, and then that difference became even smaller in Dame Tech's actual game testing, where he tested Genshin Impact at high settings with the M2 chip improving FPS by 15%. However, you need to know that the iPad Air is still limited to a 60Hz display, so it can't display any more than 60 FPS, which might actually be perfect with the new M2 chip because Dame Tech's testing showed that the M1 iPad Air got 56.2 FPS average, so the M2 chip might give us a perfect 60 FPS, which would be amazing. So the M2 chip is actually quite worth it on the new iPad Air, especially since Apple's selling it for the same price. Now moving on to feature number 2, this is the one that Apple's marketing the most because for the first time ever, Apple is giving us a brand new, larger 12.9-inch size for the iPad Air instead of only the 10.9-inch model. This alone is a very big deal because previously, the only way to get an iPad this big was to buy the highest-end iPad Pro, jam-packed with a ton of extra features that you might not care about for a whopping $1,100 plus tax. Instead, we're getting this new M2 iPad Air with the 12.9-inch display for $800, which is a great deal, just $200 more than the regular model if you want it. This will be the best option for those who want to do some gaming on a much larger display, albeit of course being limited to 60 FPS, but not every game supports 120 FPS anyway, so it's not a huge deal to those who want to save a few $100s. On top of that, the larger size is very useful to anyone who needs it for productivity work or specific apps like, let's say, mixing music, photo or video editing, and especially for artists who want to use the Apple Pencil with a larger canvas, but they don't care for the iPad Pro's extra features. Plus, the benefit for Apple is that they can sell more of the 12.9-inch Magic Keyboards, which were previously limited to the 12.9-inch iPad Pro, but now also supports the iPad Air, so Apple is able to make another $350 in revenue from 12.9-inch iPad Air buyers. And the benefit for us is that you can get the full MacBook replacing setup for $1,150 instead of $1,450 with the 12.9-inch iPad Pro. Now getting into feature number 3, this is one that impacts both the 10.9-inch and 12.9-inch sizes, and that's of course the brand new camera bump design, which now looks like a pill shape similar to how the iPhone X looked way back in the day. And some would say that it's actually a pretty big hint towards the iPhone 16's design coming later in September, which will pretty much look just like this according to all the leaks and rumors that we have right now. In my opinion, even though it's a very subtle change, I think it looks a lot better than just the simple single single little camera bump, especially now that we have the larger 12.9-inch model. And I also think this change was quite important for Apple because honestly, the M1 iPad Air is just so similar to the new one in terms of the design, so they really needed something to make it look different so you can tell that it's the new model from the outside. Kind of like back in 2020 when Apple added an additional camera and made the camera bump square for the iPad Pro to make it visually different from the original 2018 redesign that had the single camera bump. Now, in terms of the actual camera features, the new iPad Air is gonna come with an upgraded camera, now supporting ProRes video recording since the M2 chip comes with the ProRes encoders and decoders, so that's a nice little bonus, and the quality in general is better thanks to the new image signal processor. Moving on to feature number 4, we have the upgrade from Wi-Fi 6 to Wi-Fi 6E, which is a pretty big upgrade because Wi-Fi 6 didn't really add much in terms of performance and functionality, while 6E actually enabled the brand new 6 GHz band, which gives you a more reliable connection because sometimes the other bands can get congested. And now that Wi-Fi 6E has been out for a while, there are a ton of routers on the market that are much less expensive compared to when it first launched, so it's finally worth it to buy a router and match the new iPad Air to it. Not only that, but Wi-Fi 6E also comes with improvements to the older 2.4 and 5 GHz bands themselves, making them more reliable and faster, so that's great. And then finally, we have feature number 5, which is actually Bluetooth 5.3. If you're all about future-proofing, you're gonna wanna upgrade to the new iPad Air because Bluetooth 5.3 comes with a bunch of new features that make it a lot more reliable with a stronger connection and more. And even if you have the AirPods Pro 2, which have been out for a while, those have Bluetooth 5.3, so you'll benefit right away, and not only just in the future when the AirPods 4 or the AirPods Max 2 come out or anything else, so I think it's totally worth it. And now, with that said, let's answer the original question. Is the new 2024 iPad Air actually worth it, or should you just continue waiting for the new M3 iPad Pro? Well, to be honest, if you have a high enough budget and you can afford the iPad Pro, then 100% skip the iPad Air and wait, because we're expecting the iPad Pro later this month with a ton of new changes and a full redesign, especially since the iPad Pro is getting a revolutionary OLED display, the M3 chip, and support for the 2nd gen Magic Keyboard. It's overall a much better product, so definitely wait. But if you're in the camp that really wants a 12.9-inch display, but you can't afford the $1,100 iPad Pro, this new iPad Air is perfect for you. So with that said, hopefully you enjoyed this video, and if you did, go ahead and click the circle above to subscribe for more videos like this one, and check out one of those two right over there. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.